Imagine this, it's 2 million years after humans vanished from the earth. One day, a mother gave birth to what seemed like a worthless child. Just as she did, lightning struck, leaving the baby a disgusting skull, its only remaining part. On the same day, the father had a wild experience at a run-down temple where he encountered God. But instead of worshipping, he killed God with his sword and made a dark pact with 12 heavenly demons. Like worthless father, he promised to sacrifice his firstborn in exchange for ultimate power. So, the father ordered the midwife to kill his son and erase all traces. The old hag took the baby to a river, ready to drown him, but then spotted a boat nearby. Thinking quickly, she placed the baby in the boat and sent him down the river. As the baby floats away, a terrifying demon appears, ready to devour him. But at that moment, a blind old warrior senses the demon's presence. With a single, precise slash, he defeats the demon. Approaching the boat, the old warrior is shocked to find a baby inside, glowing with an ancient, divine power. Far away, on the other side of the world, a man was about to crucify a defeated enemy soldier along with many others. But then, a terrible accident happened. His own knights accidentally killed his wife. Heartbroken, the man couldn't handle the pain. He collapsed to the ground, hugging it desperately, wishing for an end. Miraculously, he survived but lost his ability to see color. One day, while wandering aimlessly, he discovered a strange boat. Inside, he found a mutilated baby who was, against all odds, still alive. The man felt a connection and decided to raise this child. He crafted fake limbs and skin for the baby, naming him Hyakimaru, after the Japanese word for 100 demons. Soon, he realized that Hyakimaru couldn't feel pain or show any emotions. Determined to give the child a purpose, the man trained Hyakimaru to become a fierce warrior. Over the years, Hyakimaru killed thousands of demons, covered in their blood after every battle. On his 16th birthday, something incredible happened. Hyakimaru's hidden godly power activated, and his missing leg regenerated. The old man, filled with regret, realized he had only taught Hyakimaru how to kill, and not how to get bitches. In a rare moment of emotion, Hyakimaru touched his own face for the first time and hugged the man who raised him, feeling a fatherly bond. With that, Hyakimaru left to find some milk, setting out on his own journey. For the next 3 billion years, Hyakimaru traveled the world, never eating, always moving. One day, he stumbled upon a scene that caught his attention. A child named Dororo was being beaten by 3 ugly men for stealing money. Before the men could leave, Dororo managed to throw a stone at their fatso leader, hitting him in the eye. Furious, the leader began to drown Dororo and ordered his men to fetch a sword to finish him off. As the men walked away, they spotted Hyakimaru in the distance. But Hyakimaru wasn't looking at them. He was focused on a demon lurking in the river. In a flash, the demon lunged and devoured the ugly fatso with a single bite. Terrified, the other men tried to run, but the demon quickly swallowed them too. Just as the demon was about to eat Dororo, Hyakimaru sprang into action. He slashed off the demon's arm and threw Dororo to safety. Then, he began to evade the demon's attacks, strategically destroying the bridge's foundations. The demon chased Hyakimaru relentlessly, but he continued to hack away at the bridge until it collapsed, burying the demon under the rubble and killing it. In that dramatic moment, Hyakimaru's mask fell off, revealing his regenerated skin. As lightning flashed in the distance, one of the 12 heavenly demons was destroyed. As Hyakimaru bravely faced off against demons, Daigo's second son excitedly showed his mother a dove he'd caught. But even as she admired the bird, her heart still ached for her first son, her eyes often drawn to the towering goddess statue, a symbol of sacrifice. In an attempt to ease their sorrow, they set off for a nearby village. Along the way, Dororo made a startling discovery. Despite Hyakimaru's blindness, he possessed an extraordinary ability. He could see the outline of souls and detect demons by the red hue of their souls, a talent that proved worthless on their journey. Upon reaching the village, they sought refuge for the night in the rustic horse stables. However, their peaceful respite was abruptly interrupted by the chilling tolling of hellish bells, signaling the presence of unseen malevolence. The following morning, they were summoned to meet Lady Bandai, the revered village priestess. Despite her graceful demeanor, Hyakimaru's heightened senses detected an underlying darkness, prompting a sudden, uncharacteristic attack. In the chaos that ensued, both Hyakimaru and Dororo found themselves confined to the village's crude jail cell. Confusion clouded Dororo's mind as he struggled to comprehend the motive behind Hyakimaru's seemingly unwarranted aggression. In their cell, a bold, ugly, blind man emerged, revealing that he too possessed the ability to see the souls of demons. He recognized Hyakkimaru as the abandoned baby and explained that Lady Bandai was indeed a demon in disguise. At that moment, both of them sensed another demon nearby. Hyakkimaru dashed forward, slashing off its arm before diving into a well with Baiwamaru. They navigated through hidden tunnels and eventually reached the priestess's chamber. Hyakkimaru kicked down the door, revealing the priestess's ugly, monstrous form. Without hesitation, Hyakkimaru charged, but the ugly priestess swatted him away with her tail and unleashed a flurry of attacks with her numerous limbs. He fought back, managing to stab her eyes with his swords. Just as he was about to land the final blow, the village chief intervened, giving the demon a chance to flee. Hyakkimaru quickly freed himself and pursued the demon into the forest. Bandai tried to trap him with bamboo, but Hyakkimaru skillfully evaded her. Other demon rang the bells of hell, but Hyakkimaru disappeared and then descended from above, decapitating her in a single strike. Bandai transformed back into her beautiful form, realizing that one of the 12 demons had failed to sacrifice Hyakkimaru. Before she could utter another word, Hyakkimaru pierced her face, ending her for good. The demon disintegrated, and the ominous bells fell silent. Dororo searched the ground and found thousands of gold coins buried there. Bandai had been stealing from the adventurers she killed. The village chief explained that their community's survival depended on this ill-gotten wealth. He had sold his soul to the demons in exchange for the gold, believing it was the only way to keep their village alive. Right then, in a twist of fate, 2 of those 12 demons met their demise, bringing Hyakkimaru back to his senses, quite literally, restoring his hearing as night descended upon the forest. Amidst the cacophony of wildlife sounds, Dororo scratched his head, baffled by Hyakkimaru's sudden auditory prowess in what should have been utter silence. To ease the sensory overload, he suggested they put their demon hunting escapades on pause until Hyakkimaru adjusted to his restored sense. But just as they were mulling over their next move, a new challenger approached. Hyakkimaru sensed something lurking in the shadows, and before they knew it, a colossal bird swooped down from the canopy, prompting Hyakkimaru to whip out his trusty blade. Dodging the bird's initial assault, he found himself in the line of fire once more, its approach masked by the rustling foliage. With a thud, the bird knocked him to the forest floor, but Hyakkimaru managed to retaliate, landing a solid hit. Sensing an opening, he struck again, this time aided by Baiwamaru, who swiftly dealt the finishing blow. As the dust settled, Dororo noticed a distant look in Hyakkimaru's eyes, like he was wrestling with inner demons. Come morning, as the first rays of light pierced through the canopy, Hyakkimaru stirred from his reverie, drawn by the haunting melody of a distant voice. Following the sound, he stumbled upon a hot maiden singing by the riverbank, her soulful tunes captivating his senses. Desperate to connect, he reached out, inadvertently revealing his blindness. Overwhelmed, he leaned into her embrace like you would, while Dororo and Baiwamaru approached, likely seen as his steadfast allies. As they settled into the eerie old temple, the seriousness of Hyakkimaru's injuries became more apparent. Mooney couldn't help but notice the toll they were taking on him, perhaps a sign that he was on the mend, inching closer to reclaiming his humanity. When Mio showed up, she urged them to stay put until Hyakkimaru got back on his feet. But she brought more than concern. She also brought a group of young orphans, survivors of the brutal conflict tearing through the land. In the midst of newfound responsibilities, Take stepped up, taking charge and ensuring Mio got some well-deserved rest before her night shift. Meanwhile, Dororo felt a pang of guilt, prompting him to seek out Take. Offering to help, he was met with a firm refusal from the young boy, determined to prove himself like his sister, Mio. Yet, as the night wore on, Mooney's restlessness grew. He couldn't shake the feeling of needing to explore the forest to find a safer path. With promises to return soon, he disappeared into the darkness. In Dio's village, unsettling news arrived via messenger. The Saki clan loomed ominously at their borders, stirring fear among the villagers. And as whispers of famine hung in the air, Nuinakata ominously remarked that history seemed doomed to repeat itself, casting a shadow over their uncertain future. At the temple, Mio took it upon herself to check on Hyakkimaru, finding him burning up with fever. Recognizing his urgent need for medication, she assured him she'd bring back some healing potions after finishing her night shift. Just as she began to sing, Hyakkimaru voiced his desire for her to remain at his side indefinitely, instead of leaving him alone. Meanwhile, in the forest, Mooney stumbled upon a meandering path alongside the creek, his mind racing with the possibilities of this newfound discovery. Envisioning it as a potential sanctuary for Mio and the orphaned children under her care, His excitement peaked. However, his enthusiasm was dampened by the unsettling presence of a lurking demon deep within a nearby hole, shattering his illusions of safety. The following day, upon Mio's return to the village, she was met with the sight of Hyakkimaru patiently waiting outside. Determined to tend to his needs, she retrieved the medication she had brought along. Yet, to her surprise, Hyakkimaru insisted she sing for him instead. Sensing an opportunity, Dororo suggested that her soothing voice might stir his consciousness. Just then, Muni arrived, eager to share his discovery of a potential hideout in the forests. However, his revelation came with a stark warning: a powerful demon already claimed over the land. He emphasized they need to kick his ass out before the area could be considered safe. Driven by a sense of duty and concern, Hyakkimaru disregarded Dororo's protests and set off towards the forest. Recognizing his friend's precarious state of recovery, Muni resolved to accompany him, offering unwavering support. Meanwhile, with the absence of the men, Mio revealed her daring plan to work for both villages preparing for war, citing it as the most usefulness way to financial stability. Alarmed by the risks involved, the boys voiced their concerns, prompting Dororo to pledge his unwavering protection to her. As dusk fell, casting a cloak of darkness over the land, Dororo shadowed Mio into the forest, only to see her plot getting clapped by ugly old disgusting soldiers. Witnessing the burdens she bore and the plot she faced on a daily basis left him feeling disheartened and conflicted. Just as Hyakkimaru and Muni got to this huge crater, they saw the demon lurking there. Hyakkimaru, always ready for a fight, pulled out his swords immediately. But Muni, still feeling weak and sick from his recent injuries, knew he wasn't up for another battle. He tried to tell Hyakkimaru to take a breather and heal up first, but that demon wasn't having it. It started drilling into the ground, and suddenly, the sand sucked them both deeper into the pit. Hyakkimaru jumped off the rocks and went straight for the demon. Muni, knowing he had to help somehow, slashed at the demon from behind, making it turn around. This gave Hyakkimaru the perfect chance to strike, and he drove his sword into the demon's head. But just when it seemed like they had the upper hand, the demon grabbed Hyakkimaru and started dragging him down into the ground. Luckily, Muni wasn't about to let his friend go that easily. He managed to pull Hyakkimaru free, but it came at a terrible cost. Hyakkimaru let out a scream of pain. The demon had taken half of his leg. Later that night, Dororo returned to the temple and found Muni and Hyakkimaru. When Dororo saw that Hyakkimaru had lost part of his leg, he was so shocked he almost fainted. Muni explained that the demon had eaten it. Despite the horrible pain, Hyakkimaru was making sounds of discomfort, and Muni told Dororo something incredible. Hyakkimaru had gained the ability to speak. One morning, when Mio showed up, she saw Hyakkimaru lying there, injured, and immediately wondered what had happened. Muni reassured her that he would pull through. As Mio began tending to Hyakkimaru's wounds, Dororo noticed her scars, which brought back some troubling memories. Unable to handle it, he ran off. A few minutes later, Tio found Dororo and asked why he had taken off like that. Dororo, deciding it was best to keep the memory to himself, asked Tio if he had ever seen Mio at work. Tio explained that his job was to look after the remaining orphans, and they all survived thanks to Mio's sacrifices. Meanwhile, back at Daigo's village, Tahumaru was getting restless and demanded to be sent to the battlefield. But someone reminded him that he was still just a kid and should learn to use his small sword from his mother instead. When Nuanakata appeared, Tahumaru begged her to teach him how to use his sword. However, she saw him as a spoiled brat and ignored his pleas. Tahumaru started to realize that Nuanakata had been pretending to care about him his whole life. He began to wonder whose sword she was actually worried about and suspected she was hiding a secret. Determined to find out the truth, he vowed to uncover it someday. At the temple, the memory of that terrible incident kept replaying in Hyakkimaru's mind. Determined to clear his head, he tried making his way into the forest, but his injuries got the better of him, and he collapsed. Mio saw him and quickly rushed over to help. She supported him with her plot, urging him to relax. When she asked him to speak, she realized he couldn't say a word. To soothe him, she started singing a gentle melody. Muni was nearby, observing everything. He noticed something remarkable. Mio's singing seemed to calm the dark presence within Hyakkimaru. Realizing this, Muni quietly slipped away and found Dororo. He explained that he'd be staying close to the forest for a while and shared a grave concern. The demonic flames inside Hyakkimaru might one day transform him into a monster. Later that evening, as Mio prepared to leave for work, she approached Dororo. She mentioned seeing him the previous night and explained that her work was their only means of survival. Touched by her honesty and the sacrifices she made for the other children, Dororo forgave her. He acknowledged her bravery and assured her he would never hate her for what she had to do. Feeling a sense of relief, he hurried back to the temple, happy to have resolved his feelings. At the temple, Hyakkimaru was busy carving a piece of wood to make himself a new leg. Dororo, seeing this, decided to help by feeding him. He insisted that Hyakkimaru needed his strength back and shared his hope that Hyakkimaru would never turn into a monster. Dororo told him that he was his only friend in the world, showing his deep care and concern. By morning, Hyakkimaru had finished crafting his wooden leg and was practicing his sword skills. The orphans watched him in awe, inspired by his determined occupation. They decided to reveal a stash of hidden swords to him. Tio explained that they had found these weapons on the battlefield, hoping they might be of use to Hyakkimaru. Meanwhile, Mio was heading off to her job when a soldier from the Ishikawa clan sees her and immediately became suspicious, thinking she might be a spy. That night, as all the kids were fast asleep, Dororo noticed that Hyakkimaru was missing from the temple. He guessed that Hyakkimaru had gone to confront the demon lurking in the pit. Hyakkimaru, determined and ready for combat, unleashed his swords as he dived into the hole, dodging the demon's vicious claws. As the rain began to pour, the demon bit off his leg once more. Despite the pain, Hyakkimaru stabbed the demon in its mouth and, with an incredible leap, managed to kill it instantly. At that precise moment, the rain ceased, and Daigo's statue dramatically split in half. Back at the temple, when Mio arrived, Tako told her that Hyakkimaru had gone to fight the monster. Alarmed, she rushed off to find him. Meanwhile, a group of Ishikawa soldiers reached the temple and began following her. As Hyakkimaru and Dororo made their way back home, Dororo was overjoyed to see Hyakkimaru's leg restored. But their happiness was shattered when they noticed smoke and flames consuming the temple. The soldiers had mercilessly slaughtered the orphans. Dororo, arriving at the horrific scene, discovered that all his friends were dead. The leader of the soldiers accused him of being a spy, explaining that Mio had been seen entering the enemy's camp shortly after leaving the temple, leading him to believe she was betraying them. Desperate to save Mio, Dororo tried to run to her, but the soldier caught him and threw him to the ground. As the soldier prepared to kill Dororo, Hyakkimaru intervened, slicing off the soldier's hand. The soldiers quickly surrounded Hyakkimaru, ready to attack. In that critical moment, Hyakkimaru realized his crush was on the brink of death. The shock and rage consumed him, pushing him into a wild frenzy. His eyes filled with fury, he lunged at the nearest soldier, his sword plunging deep. One by one, he cut down the soldiers, his movements driven by sheer vengeance. Dororo, watching in horror, remembered Muni's warning. Hyakkimaru could become a monster if he let his rage consume him. Just as Hyakkimaru was about to kill the leader, Dororo intervened, stopping him and allowing the soldier to escape. The soldier, in his panic, dropped a small pouch. Dororo picked it up and showed it to Hyakkimaru. "This pouch is filled with rice seeds," Dororo said. It was Mio's dream to start a rice farm for the children, so they could have proper meals. She wanted to feed them rice patties because all they've ever had were burnt scraps after the war. Don't forget her dream. Hyakkimaru, still trembling with anger, heard Dororo's words. The memory of Mio's kindness and her dream to care for the children pierced through his rage. For the first time, he spoke a word, Mio. They buried their fallen friends with heavy hearts and left the temple. As they walked away, Mio's sweet voice seemed to echo in their minds, urging them to keep moving forward despite their grief. That night, while they were resting, Dororo asked if Hyakkimaru was hungry, but Hyakkimaru just clutched the pouch tightly. Suddenly, Dororo heard strange noises coming from the forest. Curious and slightly annoyed, he thought maybe some lovers were hiding in the bushes. He started throwing stones in irritation, when a basket nearly fell on him. A large spider appeared, and Hyakkimaru sprang into action. Hyakkimaru climbed a tree with incredible speed and slashed through the webs. A man fell to the ground, tangled in the sticky strands. As Dororo watched, he realized Hyakkimaru had been battling more than just a spider, it was a monstrous creature. Hyakkimaru struck the beast, but it quickly spun a web and trapped him against the tree. The monster fled, leaving Hyakkimaru bound and struggling. As the night cast its shroud over the landscape, they stumbled upon a village. Dororo suggested they make camp there, a proposition the ugly monster welcomed, seeing it as an ideal spot for recuperation. However, upon arrival, they encountered an unexpected snag. Entry required a pass. The guard warned of a kidnapper terrorizing the villagers, heightening the need for caution. The next morning, a compassionate villager noticed the charming lady on the roadside. Despite her attempts to shoo him away, he insisted on offering her shelter in his home, promising food and care. Unbeknownst to him, the lady saw this as an opportunity to exploit his kindness, envisioning him as a potential source of sustenance. Inside his shelter, introductions were exchanged. When he asked for her name and received no reply, he bestowed upon her the name Ohagi, attributing her silence to hunger. As he served her a bowl of rice, she relished the taste, all the while scheming her next move. Brushing off his queries about her background, she asserted her intention to leave this ugly place once she had regained her strength. As the villager prepared to depart until nightfall, Ohagi found herself intrigued by him. Left alone once more, she pondered the mysteries surrounding him, sensing an air of enigma that left her both fascinated and cautious. As Yajiro returned home one evening, he noticed Ohagi's sickness had worsened. Concerned, he wondered if she hadn't eaten all day. His attention was momentarily diverted by the sight of a cockroach, prompting him to release it outside. Ohagi, puzzled by his compassionate act, questioned why he spared the insect when most people wouldn't. Yajiro explained that every life is precious, leaving Ohagi impressed by his kindness. She confessed that she had never encountered anyone like him before. However, as they slept that night, Ohagi's hunger overpowered her. She crept towards Yajiro, intending to feed on him, but discovered she was only craving food. Relieved, she finished her meal before returning to bed, feeling a sense of admiration towards Yajiro. She longed to learn more about this unique human. The next morning, Dororo returned from scouting the village, exhausted. He wondered where the spider could be hiding. Later that day, Dororo discovered another villager had gone missing, puzzling him as there were no signs of a monster. Yajiro realized Ohagi's condition had worsened and lamented the lack of doctors in the village. He informed her they needed a traveler's pass to leave, but offered to help her sneak out. Meanwhile, Hyakimaru and Dororo found themselves chewing on weeds for dinner, a stark reminder of how fucked up life they are living. Dororo feared they would surely starve if they remained in the village any longer. At the same time, Yajiro and Ohagi hurried towards the secret exit, hoping to escape unnoticed. However, their plans were thwarted when they encountered Hyakimaru and Dororo along the way. Recognizing Hyakimaru and Dororo, Ohagi couldn't help but wonder if they were lying in wait to ambush her. Sensing her apprehension, Dororo accused her of being the spider and ordered Hyakimaru to attack. However, Yajiro intervened, revealing himself as the true kidnapper in a desperate attempt to protect Ohagi. Their confrontation was interrupted by the appearance of the guards, who threatened to execute Yajiro for his clandestine activities. Dororo, ever opportunistic, tried to claim credit for discovering Yajiro, hoping to receive a reward. To their dismay, the leader of the guards exposed the ruse, revealing that there was never a reward and that they had been deceived. As the guards moved to apprehend them, Ohagi swiftly bound them with her webs, draining their life force in the process. Hyakimaru, sensing the dark energy emanating from her, drew his sword and attempted to attack. However, Ohagi immobilized him with her cloak before fleeing with Yajiro by her side. Dororo, realizing the danger they faced, hurried to free Hyakimaru. Together, they pursued Ohagi and Yajiro, while a guard alerted the others with a shrill whistle, signaling the beginning of a chase fraught with peril. Eager to flee, Ohagi shot a web to the mountain's peak, pulling them upward. As Yajiro realized her strength had returned, he worried he was now useless. Ohagi reassured him, expressing her desire for his eternal plot connection. Yajiro questioned if she killed humans after draining their life force, but she explained she always spared them, though she still took their energy. Relieved, Yajiro offered himself to her, tired of his lonely existence. Eventually, they reached a secret cave. Yajiro suggested Ohagi find the exit alone, fearing for her safety now that his identity was exposed. However, she insisted they escape together, concerned for his well-being. Suddenly, arrows pierced Yajiro's body, revealing the soldier's presence. Enraged, Ohagi halted the arrows and drained the soldier's life force, transforming into a spider to capture them. Hyakimaru intervened, cutting her web and severing her leg. Ohagi pushed him away, vowing not to abandon Yajiro. When Hyakimaru refused to let her escape, Yajiro pleaded for her life, expressing his desire to stay with her forever. Moved by his devotion, Hyakimaru relented, leaving Ohagi to depart with Yajiro. The next day, they kept on trekking, and Dororo couldn't help but notice a glimmer of a smile on Hyakimaru's face. Fast forward a few days, and Dororo's scratching his head, wondering why Hyakimaru's suddenly gone mute, especially when he's already got his voice back. Then, they stumble upon this odd scene. A bunch of folks lugging a girl up the mountain. Dororo figures it's some sort of wedding procession, but what catches his eye is the sadness etched on the bride's face. Just then, this dude comes barreling down the mountainside, aiming to put a stop to the whole thing. But darn it, the wind plays tricks and blows his arrow off course. Dororo steps in, telling the guy to cool his jets. No way was he letting him rain on the bride's parade. Turns out, this guy thinks Dororo's clueless and spills the beans. The girl's his sister, and she's about to be wedded off to some monster. Dororo ain't having it. He offers his backing, boasting that Hyakkimaru can take on any beast. Before you know it, they're at the peak, and Saru spills the beans about a dark, ominous cloud hanging over their village. He calls it Nakasero, a real nasty piece of work that shows up like clockwork to munch on their villagers. To keep themselves safe, they've been chucking a girl at the demon every time it shows up. But Dororo smells something fishy. Why just girls? Even Saru's clueless. Dororo reckons there's more to it and offers to rescue the girl, for a price, naturally. Saru coughs up some worms and a tiny piece of gold. But Dororo knows there's more where that came from. So, with a deal struck and names exchanged, they set off to take down Nakasero and save the day. A couple of hours later, when the other villagers had bounced, Dororo and Saru took out the guards with ninja-like stealth. Feeling bold, Saru decided to bust Genie out of lockup. But Genie dropped a bomb. She couldn't dip because she was scared the demon would gobble up the whole village in her place. Saru tried to talk some sense into her, but she was like a brick wall. Her life wasn't worth more than anyone else's. Then, Dororo stepped up, promising to take down the monster. Hyakkimaru whipped out his sword, showing he's ready to roll. But right then, the dark cloud started swirling towards them, and those guards, they nearly peed their pants. In a flash, they got sucked into the clouds, and their mangled bodies thudded to the ground. As a roar echoed through the air, Dororo tried to warn Hyakkimaru about the demon in the clouds, but it was too late. Evil flames engulfed his vision, and bam, a monstrous centipede came crashing down, hungry for Saru. Genie, in a split-second act of heroism, shoved him out of harm's way and got swallowed up herself. Seeing the hulking beast, Dororo wondered if they were toast. But just when things seemed bleak, hot water shot out from a geyser, revealing a glimmer of hope. The demon was spooked by the unexpected light, and poof, the dark clouds disappeared into thin air. But Saru's heart was shattered. His sister was gone for good, and he'd never see her again. Later, Dororo decided to tail him home but got a surprise. Dude lived way up in the mountains. Saru spilled that he's a lone ranger up there. As they brainstormed how to get justice for Genie, Dororo dropped a bomb. Hyakkimaru useless right now. Just then, they noticed the cloud was getting freakishly bigger and ashes started raining down. Turns out, it was chunks of the centipede's skin. They clocked it was growing by the minute. Seeing the beast's colossal size, Saru figured they were toast. But Dororo had an epiphany. Sunlight was its weakness. So, the next day, Dororo pulled off a slick move. He pretended to be a new bride and lured the monster out. As soon as it showed, he bolted. Dodging the centipede's gnashing jaws, he dove into a hole, only to pop out the other side and lead it on a wild chase. But just when it seemed like curtains for Dororo, he slipped back into the hole, narrowly escaping the monster's clutches. Meanwhile, Saru was waiting up high, eyes locked on the monster. He let loose a flaming arrow at the geyser, setting off a massive explosion that roasted the beast. But just before the sun peeked over the horizon, the fire died down, and the beast released more toxic fumes, clouding the area as it rose up for the kill. At that critical moment, Akimaru caught its attention with a well-aimed rock, launching arrows at the monster in rapid succession. With each shot, he closed the distance, slashing at its face, sending it tumbling. Yet, despite the ferocity of the assault, the beast persisted, narrowly missing him with its tentacle before sending him flying. Dororo saw an opportunity to redirect Hyakkimaru's focus towards the monster. He leapt down the mountainside, drawing its attention with his voice. As the creature barreled after him, crashing through obstacles, a stone struck Dororo, knocking him out cold. But Hyakkimaru persisted, screaming to lure the demon away from Dororo's prone form. Even as he was battered and thrown about, he refused to give in, halting the beast's advance just before it could devour him. As the monster flung him high into the air, Dororo guided him with his voice, guiding his strike straight into its eye. The creature emerged from the clouds, its skin beginning to molt under the sunlight. In a daring move, Hyakkimaru leapt into its maw, tearing it apart from the inside, causing it to vanish in an instant. With the monster vanquished, Dororo breathed a sigh of relief as they tumbled into a nearby river. Moments later, Saru spotted Genie in the water, alive and well, reuniting with her in joy. As Hyakkimaru groaned, his prosthetic nose falling away to reveal a real one sprouting in its place, Saru handed Dororo the promised gold, only to find it had spoiled. However, Genie expressed her gratitude with a flower. As they departed from the mountain, Hyakkimaru caught a whiff of the flower's scent, uttering Dororo's name for the first time. Hearing this, Dororo realized that Hyakkimaru was beginning to reclaim his full humanity. Later that day, Hyakkimaru took a whiff of a flower and then decided to sniff Dororo's face. But she pushed him away, collapsing from exhaustion. Trying to rise, she stumbled again, and Hyakkimaru sensed something was seriously up. He carried her to a nearby village, seeking help from a farmer, but the guy blew him off. Trying someone else, he explained Hyakkimaru's bad state, but the guy just shrugged, saying he wasn't a doc, and split. With no other options, Hyakkimaru left Dororo on the ground, bringing back memories of how his mom met her end. Luckily, a woman stumbled upon them and offered shelter. As Dororo regained consciousness, she thought Hyakkimaru had abandoned her and tried to leave, but the woman calmed her down. That's when she realized Dororo was a girl. Eyeing a flower Dororo had, she opened up about how it reminded her of her parents, stirring up some heavy emotions. 6 years ago, her dad led a squad in a showdown against the samurai, seeking revenge for their wrecked village. But they fell into a trap set by her evil uncle, resulting in a bloodbath. Mortally wounded, her dad shielded her with his life. Together, they watched their village burn before he passed. Left alone, her mom raised Dororo solo. But as they trekked for weeks with nothing to eat, her mom dropped in a field of flowers, urging Dororo to hang tight until the war was over. Those words fueled Dororo's survival. Thinking over Dororo's toughness, the woman wondered how she lasted weeks without grub. Dororo assured her she'd never quit, and as she processed this bombshell, she filled Hyakkimaru in. His buddy was actually a girl. A couple of sunsets later, as they were bidding farewell to the village, Dororo pondered if Hyakkimaru had figured out her true identity as a girl. However, he simply brushed it off, keeping her secret safe at Daigo's village. Meanwhile, a messenger came hurrying in, whispering to Hyakkimaru that his abandoned baby might still be alive, stirring hope in his heart. Furthermore, news arrived that a commander in their army had been ambushed by a mysterious man with robotic arms, leaving Hyakkimaru wondering if his son could indeed be out there somewhere. Later that day, a chief dropped the bombshell that it hadn't rained for a whopping 2 months, spelling doom for their rice fields. Just when Hyakkimaru thought things couldn't possibly get worse, another chief spilled the beans about a new clan gearing up for war against them. Feeling like he was on a sinking ship, Hyakkimaru dashed off to his temple, convinced that Daigo's son was behind the vandalism of the statues, slowly piecing himself back together. In the midst of all this chaos, Hyakkimaru found himself face to face with his nemesis, revealed in a mystical puff of smoke. With a deter new inocculation burning in his eyes, he charged at a monstrous creature and swiftly ended its existence. Meanwhile, as Dororo scrubbed the bloodstains from Hyakkimaru's clothes, she casually suggested a pit stop at a nearby village for some grub. But her attention was soon caught by a pouch dangling from Hyakkimaru's belt, making her wonder if it held his family's emblem. However, Hyakkimaru remained silent, his gaze fixed on the mysterious pouch. In Daigo's village, Tahumaru decided to quiz the messenger about the baby he'd been searching for. The messenger revealed that the baby vanished 16 years ago. When Tahumaru pressed him on why the baby was so important, the messenger bit off his own tongue, signaling that this secret was seriously dark. That evening, determined to get answers, Tahumaru confronted his father, demanding to know why he was so interested in this baby. His father erupted in fury, yelling at him to mind his own business and calling him a nosy brat. The next day, Tahumaru, found on the island shore by his men, vented his frustration, claiming his father still saw him as a child. He declared that he needed to prove his worth. Just then, he spotted some villagers on the shore and asked if they were under attack. A villager explained they were being terrorized by a monster in the lake, making it impossible to feel safe. Sensing a golden opportunity to prove himself, Tahumaru vowed to destroy the beast. His men rallied behind him, ready for the challenge. That evening, as they paddled their boats towards the lake's center, the fishermen suddenly found their oars stuck, halting their progress. Tahumaru immediately sensed the presence of the monster. Within moments, it erupted from the water, sending waves of fear through the villagers who thought they were about to become its next meal. Quickly, they tied their boats together with a sturdy rope to hold their position. As the creature grew more furious, Tahumaru drew his sword, prepared for the confrontation. Tahumaru leaped onto another boat just as the monstrous crab lunged at a villager. The villager barely managed to escape, while Matsu took aim and fired an arrow at the beast. Demonstrating remarkable agility, Tahumaru jumped to another boat and swiftly slashed the creature's claw. Hyogo followed up with a powerful strike, cracking the crab's shell. Just as Tahumaru was about to deliver the final blow, the monster retreated into the water and vanished from sight. However, the threat wasn't over. The beast began to attack their boats from below, attempting to sink them. Realizing the imminent danger, Tahumaru ordered his men to row the boats back to shore as quickly as possible. On the island, Matsu advised Tahumaru that fighting the beast in the water was nearly impossible. He suggested they come up with a smarter plan. Later that evening, Matsu proposed a bold idea: they could throw explosives into the monster's mouth, which would surely blow it to bits. However, Tahumaru, not wanting to endanger his men, rejected the idea and vowed to find a better solution. Just then, Tahumaru noticed something far off in the distance. With Hyogo's help, who lifted him higher for a clearer view, he saw something that sparked a brilliant plan. Convinced that this new strategy would ensure their victory, he explained it to his people the next day. They began by chopping down trees and digging a new channel around the island. This massive effort led to the construction of a wooden gate designed to control the water flow. Once everything was set up, they decided to bait the monster using a boat. At Tahumaru's signal, the villagers cut the ropes, causing the wooden gate to open. The lake water surged into the newly created channel, draining away from the original lake and leaving the monster exposed on dry land. As they geared up to slay the beast, it let out a deafening roar. Tahumaru, leading his men, charged forward, dodging the monster's massive claw before slicing into one of its legs. Hyogo struck another blow, while Matsu fired arrows, one of which struck the beast's head, weakening it significantly. Seeing this, the villagers erupted in cheers. Tahumaru then cut into the monster's body, and the villagers pelted it with stones. However, as Tahumaru aimed to deliver the final blow, the crab hurled a rock at the gate. Realizing they might lose their advantage, he quickly ordered his men to defend the gate. But the beast threw another rock, causing water to flood in. Determined to continue the fight, Tahumaru drove his sword into the ground. But the rushing water swept the villagers away. Thankfully, Hyogo managed to save them, tossing one onto the island and the others to safety, just as the monster nearly devoured them. Just when it seemed all hope was lost, Hyakimaru appeared out of nowhere, slaying the monster instantly. Tahumaru, surprised and confused, wondered who had delivered the killing blow. His men arrived and pulled him onto their boat. As they rowed away, Tahumaru caught sight of Hyakimaru and marveled at the sheer power it must have taken to defeat the beast so effortlessly. As they regrouped on the island, Tahumaru demanded answers about Hyakimaru's identity, but Dororo sidestepped, reminding him of their debt of gratitude for the rescue. With a reluctant nod, Tahumaru thanked Hyakimaru, though the intensity of his gaze left him unsettled. Dororo then revealed Hyakimaru's blindness, explaining that he saw the world through his soul. Playfully, she demanded payment for their salvation, leading Tahumaru to fish out some silver coins. While they brainstormed their next steps, Dororo vocalized her uncertainty about finding the nearby village. Tahumaru pointed the way to his own village, charting their course. Along the journey, Hyakimaru appeared lost in thought, perhaps reflecting on their shared history. Upon reaching the village, a startled onlooker shouted about the arrival of a demon child, stirring panic in the air. Despite the frenzy, Dororo observed the peace and joy among the villagers, noting the presence of a curious character named Money. Gathering by a serene stream, Money revealed shocking truths. He disclosed the existence of demon statues within Daigo's temple and remarked on the ominous aura surrounding Hyakimaru's soul, hinting at his unwitting involvement in human harm. As Money departed, he left Dororo with a chilling reminder of the imminent danger posed by the demon's influence over Hyakimaru. Meanwhile, at Daigo's palace, Matsu spun the tale of their rescue by a mysterious man with prosthetic limbs, a wandering warrior known for seeking out demons to slay in villages far and wide. As he revealed the man's name, Nuinakata was struck by the staggering realization that he was their long-lost son. Overwhelmed by this astonishing revelation, she found herself swept up in a whirlwind of emotions. On the flip side, Dora and Hyakimaru set out from the village, fueled by their determination to confront the monstrous menace terrorizing the local populace. As they approached a looming wall, Hyakimaru's senses prickled with the unmistakable presence of a formidable demon lurking nearby. Suddenly, a boy popped up before them, causing Dora to nearly leap out of her skin. He cautioned them about the peril that lay beyond the wall. Isakura soldiers from a neighboring clan embroiled in bitter conflict with the Ishikawa clan, stood ready to strike. The boy warned that attempting to cross would surely result in a deadly encounter. Despite the chilling warning, Dora remained resolute in their mission to face down Bandman, the fearsome monster wreaking havoc in the region. She refused to back down, driven by her determination to confront the threat head-on and bring peace to the troubled land. Later that day, as the young boy Sukuroku started preparing soup, he shared a surprising revelation. He mentioned that this very place used to be his home before a massive wall went up. The Asakura clan had blocked him from returning, claiming the land for themselves. But Sukeroku was determined to cross back over and reunite with his family. That's when Dororo stepped in, offering to help sneak him in during the night. Sukeroku warned him about the demons lurking in the area, ready to devour anyone in sight. But Dororo wasn't scared at all. She confidently said her demon-slaying skills would handle any monster. Meanwhile, at Daigo's palace, Nuinakata was worried. She feared Daigo was planning to kill Hayakimaru to save his village, which she thought was a pointless sacrifice. She reminded him of the punishment he faced for giving up his son 16 years ago, but Daigo didn't care and decided to leave anyway. That night, as the Asakura soldiers abandoned their posts, the boys began to hear eerie noises. Suddenly, a flaming demon swooped down from the sky. They initially thought it was a fox, but Sukeroku identified it as the monstrous bandman that had been terrorizing the area. Flames appeared before them, transforming into foxes. As one of the demons leapt at Hayakimaru, he quickly slashed it down and continued to cut through the other demons. The lead fox called out to the others, summoning more spirits from the sky that flew towards Hayakimaru. As he fought them off, another demon managed to scratch his face. Dororo, seeing this, started throwing rocks at the demons, causing some to vanish while Hayakimaru slayed the rest. Seeing an opening, Sukeroku dashed towards the other side. Dororo thought it was too risky and tried to catch up. A demon almost got him, but Hayakimaru jumped in, killing it instantly. Dororo hurried forward as the demons merged into a giant nine-tailed fox. As he dodged fireballs, the fox pinned him down. Just as it was about to devour him, he kicked it away and slashed it, making it retreat. A volley of arrows scared the fox off, causing it to disappear. In the village, Tahumaru embarked on a quest to find Hayakimaru, convinced that he held the key to his family's hidden truths. But during his search, he encountered a peculiar and agitated woman. She erupted into hysteria at the sight of him, ranting about the return of a demon child determined to slay Daigo. Perplexed, Tahumaru demanded clarification. The woman rambled about a malevolent curse, asserting that the cursed child had re-emerged to bring doom upon the village. Meanwhile, deep in the forest, Dororo frantically called out for Sukeroku. Her voice echoed through the trees, but she soon realized that he had been captured by soldiers stationed at the wall. Simultaneously, Hayakimaru sensed an approaching army and detected the sinister presence of demons within Daigo's soul. When he inquired about Daigo's identity, a soldier derided him for daring to address their leader. Reacting swiftly, Hayakimaru extinguished their torches and connected with Daigo's soul. It became apparent to him that Daigo recognized him as his cursed son, prompting Daigo to attempt an attack. Hayakimaru swiftly evaded the blow, pondering how he had managed to survive on his own all this time. Enraged, Daigo labeled him a half-born demon child and ordered his men to eliminate him. Arrows rained down upon Hayakimaru, but he managed to escape to the other side of the wall with soldiers in hot pursuit. Taking refuge in the forest, he mulled over Daigo's words, realizing he needed to confront him again to unravel the mysteries of his past. On another note, when Dororo woke up in a cell, she found herself locked up by the Asakura clan. She spotted Sukeroku nearby and asked if he'd found his village. Sadly, he said it was destroyed, and his family might be gone. Trying to cheer him up, Dororo suggested they travel together. But another prisoner chimed in, saying they should escape to Daigo's territory for safety. He said a goddess protected their land, and a demon blocked the Asakura clan from leaving through the bandman wall. Noticing the symbol on the prisoner's clothes, Dororo realized it matched the one on Hayakimaru's pouch. The man said it was Daigo's clan emblem. Seeing a hole in the cell, Dororo thought it might lead outside. When she suggested escaping together, Sukeroku admitted he was scared, and the prisoner said it was too risky. Still determined, Dororo promised to come back for Sukeroku. She started climbing the rocks, but a guard spotted her and called for help. As the guard aimed an arrow, Sukeroku jumped in the way, causing the arrows to miss. He yelled at Dororo to run, and she made it outside but slipped and fell into a stream. Meanwhile, at Daigo's palace, Tahumaru returned home, demanding answers about why Nuinakata and his father had sacrificed Hayakimaru to the demons. The memory of this act shattered Tahumaru's heart, accusing Nuinakata of abandoning her own son and feeling utterly useless. In the midst of his anguish, Daigo appeared, stating that sacrificing Hayakimaru was the only means to save their village from the wars and famine that had devastated his people. Amidst their conversation, an urgent warning sounded, alerting them to an intruder within the palace. To their astonishment, it was Hayakimaru himself. Sensing a familial connection, he deflected the soldiers' arrows with skill, But as more arrows were launched, he fled, prompting Daigo to order his men to pursue and kill him. In a desperate plea for mercy, Tahumaru begged Daigo to spare Hayakimaru's life, recognizing him as his brother. However, Daigo callously dismissed Tahumaru's plea, declaring that Hayakimaru's survival would bring ruin to their entire village. Meanwhile, in the depths of the forest, Hayakimaru encountered Dororo emerging from the bushes. She urgently informed him that Sukeroku was to be executed soon. Simultaneously, an Asakura soldier delivered grave news to the prisoners, informing them of the Ishikawa clan's declaration of war. Believing the demon protecting their territory had been defeated, the soldiers declared that executing the prisoners would serve as their declaration of war. In the village, Tahumaru and his men made their way to the temple, only to find it in ruins with broken statues strewn about. They realized that their seal with the demons was on the brink of destruction. Suddenly, a powerful wind swept through, forcing them out of the temple. In that moment, Tahumaru made a fateful decision to side with the demons, understanding that saving his village was paramount. Meanwhile, in the forest, Dororo uncovered the truth that Hayakimaru's family were the rulers of the village. She excitedly envisioned them receiving a VIP treatment once they reached the palace, while Hayakimaru hoped to reunite with his mother. At the Banman Wall, the Isakura soldiers unleashed a volley of arrows to the prisoners, but Sukeroku miraculously survived. Without hesitation, the Ishikawa soldiers charged into battle. From the forest, Dororo witnessed the unfolding chaos. Suddenly, spirit flames erupted around them, prompting Hayakimaru to spring into action, slashing through the flames as he rushed towards the fray. On the battlefield, a demon swiftly devoured a soldier, sending the Isakura clan into a panicked retreat, realizing their chances of victory were slim. In the chaos, the Ishikawa soldiers spotted Hayakimaru, identifying him as the very demon threatening their village. Hayakimaru, fueled by rage at the memory of the soldier who had slain Mio and the orphans, was poised to unleash his fury upon them all. However, Dororo managed to restrain him, urging him to hold back. Just then, Tahumaru arrived on the scene, revealing to Hayakimaru that they were brothers and that their father had indeed offered him as a sacrifice for the village's sake. Despite acknowledging the gravity of their father's decision, Tahumaru believed it was necessary to prevent the breaking of the seal with the demons, which would spell ruin for their village. Convinced that Hayakimaru was now a threat to their land, Tahumaru drew his sword, ready to anicatate him. Dororo, feeling as though she was trapped in a nightmare, rushed to rescue Sukeroku. As the brothers clashed swords, they suddenly noticed the return of the spirit foxes. Dororo attempted to free Sukeroku from his binds, but the foxes merged into a formidable nine-tailed fox. Sukeroku urged Dororo to flee, but she cried out for Hayakimaru's help. Responding to her plea, Hayakimaru swiftly slashed Tahumaru's face before turning his attention to the demon. With relentless anicatation, he unleashed a barrage of attacks, striking the demon over 1,000 times until it crumbled against the wall in defeat. In that moment, Nuinakata showed up, pointing to the broken statue of the goddess. She begged Hayakimaru's forgiveness, admitting she couldn't save him. She explained that the village depended on his recovered body parts to thrive. Nuinakata offered herself instead, but before anyone could respond, a blinding light appeared on the wall, sending them all scrambling away in fear. Later, at the crash site, Dororo pondered their next move, uncertain of where their journey would take them next. Suddenly, Sukeroku's family emerged from the mountains, alive and well. With no ties left to the village, they decided it was time to bid farewell and seek out new horizons, hoping for a brighter future. However, as weeks passed, Hayakimaru found himself haunted by memories of his mother, unable to find peace even in sleep. When Dororo questioned his troubled demeanor, he confessed his burning desire to rid the world of demons, consumed by a sense of duty and vengeance. Determined to pursue his quest, he set off once more, with Dororo steadfastly by his side. As they journeyed down the road, they crossed a bridge leading to another village. Dororo suggested they take a break and relax in a nearby hot spring to ease their weary bodies and minds. But Hayakimaru's single-minded focus on hunting monsters remained unshaken. However, just as they approached the spring, Dororo spotted a menacing figure lurking nearby and let out a terrified scream, bringing their journey to a sudden halt. In Daigo's village, the rain returned, signaling the cancellation of the war, bringing relief to Daigo's heart. However, Nuinakata remained unconscious, which worried everyone. Daigo wondered if the demon's seal was still intact, given the rain's return, and questioned how long they could hold out against Hayakimaru's relentless pursuit. As they stood in the rain, they were surprised to see Muni among them, seemingly destined to join their company. Dororo noticed something odd on Mooney's back, a map, only visible when moistened by the rain. Mooney suggested its importance, hinting at a connection to Dororo's past and her father's treasure. Dororo struggled to understand her mother's cryptic words about the map and the treasure. Mooney posed a question. What would Dororo do once Hyakkimaru reclaimed all his body parts? The promise of the treasure enticed her, offering security and happiness. But Dororo hesitated, torn between the treasure's allure and the uncertainties ahead. As the rain continued to fall, Dororo's thoughts swirled like the mist, blending with the rhythm of nature. Perhaps, she thought, the treasure wasn't the answer but rather the journey itself, one of self-discovery and resilience. And as they stood in the rain, Dororo felt her determination grow, guiding her toward a future entwined with her past. As they ventured deeper into the forest that day, a bizarre sight met their eyes. A ghastly ghost appeared out of nowhere, sending Dororo scrambling for cover. But Hyakkimaru, ever the skeptic, didn't flinch, thinking these apparitions were harmless. To their bewilderment, one of the ghosts vanished into thin air, leaving them scratching their heads. Then, out of the mist loomed a towering ghost, reaching out to Dororo as if seeking solace. She recoiled in horror as it almost flattened her, desperately calling for Hyakkimaru's aid. But he, unfazed, brushed off her cries, convinced it posed no real threat. Undeterred, the persistent spirit trailed behind them, cradling Dororo like a child. They stumbled upon an ancient temple, where the ghost directed Hyakkimaru to a patch of sand soaked in oil, a clue to some forgotten tragedy. Despite Dororo's unease, they forged ahead. Once more, the ghost enfolded Dororo in its spectral embrace, calling her mother while she squirmed to break free. And just like that, it vanished, replaced by a mysterious figure named Sabam. He warned of the forest's eerie dangers and offered them refuge and a warm meal at his home, hoping to keep them safe. Despite their reservations, they followed Sabam, though Hyakkimaru sensed something sinister lurking nearby. As they embarked on this unexpected detour, little did they realize the chilling secrets lurking within the haunted depths of the forest. When they finally reached Sabam's home deep within the forest, they were greeted by a troupe of dancers, their lively performance welcoming them warmly. Dororo, feeling famished, devoured her meal as if she hadn't eaten in days, grateful for Sabam's hospitality. He explained that he welcomed all travelers who crossed his path, offering them food and shelter. Curiosity piqued, Dororo asked about the burnt-down temple, but the dancers fell silent, withdrawing from the room. Sabam, sensing her interest, decided to share the tragic tale. Years ago, a nun had cared for orphans at the temple, only to betray them, treating them like slaves and selling them off. One fateful day, lightning struck the temple, engulfing it in flames and sealing the fate of all inside. Hyakkimaru pondered the ghostly figure haunting the forest, and Sabam revealed it to be the tormented spirit of the sinful nun, forever condemned to seek new victims. As night fell, doubts crept into Dororo's mind. Was Sabam's story true, or just a chilling legend? Hyakkimaru brushed off her concerns, but Dororo couldn't shake the feeling of unease. The spilled oil at the temple site hinted at foul play, raising suspicions of a demonic presence guarding a dark secret. Their fears were realized when a monstrous creature emerged from the woods, intent on devouring them. Dororo tried to wake Hyakkimaru, but he remained sound asleep. With swift precision, Hyakkimaru battled the creature, slicing off its limbs as it unleashed sticky silk to ensnare him. Despite the danger, he fought valiantly, delivering a fatal blow to the creature's belly. Their relief was short-lived as another, even more formidable demon appeared before them. Sensing danger, Hyakkimaru urged Dororo to wash off the strange dust it had cast. Though harmless, they knew the demons lurking in the forest wouldn't give up their secrets easily. Just beyond the village, the demon transformed into a woman and had a chat with Sabam. She warned him they couldn't attack the guests, especially since one of them was a cursed child trying to get back his lost body parts. Sabam promised to keep everyone safe, including the guests and his monster pals. The next morning, over breakfast, Sabam told Doro and Hyakkimaru they should stick around a bit longer because it was safe there. Back in the village, Doro noticed everyone seemed really happy. A family even invited her in and gave her a rice cake, saying they owed everything to Sabam. When Doro asked about what happened at the temple, though, the family got quiet and left her feeling uneasy. Meanwhile, Hyakkimaru followed Sabam into the forest, suspicious of his motives. When they got to an open spot, Hyakkimaru realized Sabam had tricked him into coming there. Sabam said it was just a good spot to look at the village, but Hayakimaru wasn't so sure. Back in the village, Dororo found a storehouse filled with rice way off from the rest of the village. She thought it was weird and wondered why the villagers were acting so strange. She decided to check it out but ended up falling through a hidden trapdoor. She was met by a villager who accused her of snooping around and said they were just trying to protect their home. Right in the moment, Sabame opened up to Hayakimaru about how the village was his whole deal, his ultimate chill spot, and he swore to shield it from any danger, even counting the monsters as part of his crew, promising to ride or die for them. Then, he spilled the beans about what went down 16 years back in the village. It got straight up wrecked by runaway samurai from the war, turning it into a ghost town. In the middle of all that mess, a big bad demon showed up, offering protection in exchange for a constant buffet of samurai. Sabame reluctantly agreed, and together they chowed down on those samurai, bringing some shaky peace to the village. Curious, Sabame grilled Hayakimaru about why he was on a non-stop demon hunting spree. Hayakimaru spilled the tea about his mission to reclaim every single one of his body parts from the underworld. Meanwhile, down in the underground, Dororo found herself in a tight spot, realizing nobody was coming to her rescue. While she was figuring out her next move, she came face to face with a bunch of creepy monsters lurking in the shadows. Trying to hightail it out of there, Dororo tripped and fell, only to get caught up in some weird silky thread. Out of nowhere, this big ghost showed up, putting the monsters on pause. As Dororo tried to wrap her head around the ghost's intervention, it ordered the monsters to scram. But those buggers just wouldn't quit. Then, out of left field, a squad of baby ghosts swooped in, scaring the monsters off. One of the little ghosties came up to Dororo, spilling the beans about Sabame's dark deeds. He offed the nun and fed the kids to the monsters. Dororo felt a gut punch of sadness, wondering how people could be so messed up. But those sweet baby ghosts offered her a way out of the darkness, showing her the path to safety. In the forest, the beast woke up, and Sabame revealed his plan to make Hayakimaru its next meal. The beast appeared, and the demons threw strange dust into the air. Hayakimaru held his breath, realizing Sabame was just as ruthless as Daigo, willing to sacrifice anyone for his own gain. Hayakimaru fought back, slashing at the monsters, knocking one down and injuring another's wing. When Sabame tried to control the beast, Hayakimaru kicked him down the hill and attacked the demon. The beast managed to fly away, scratching Hayakimaru with its claws. Despite the injury, Hayakimaru broke free and chased the beast deeper into the forest. The beast, now furious, crashed into a tower, starting a fire that quickly spread throughout the village. That evening, Dororo found Hayakimaru in the forest and told him what was happening. They both saw the village burning. The villagers, watching their storehouse burn, realized all their food was gone. Panic set in, and they started fighting over the remaining rice. Sabame saw everything he had worked for go up in flames. Hayakimaru tried to leave, but his prosthetic leg shattered. Determined, he decided to hunt down the last demon that night. He reached the center of the lake where the monster emerged and grabbed him. Hayakimaru set its wings on fire, causing the demon to crash into the water. As he made his way back to shore, another statue broke, and pieces of wood fell from his back, allowing a real spinal cord to grow in their place. As dawn broke and they began their departure from the village, Dororo couldn't help but notice the ruins and the sorrowful faces of the villagers. Doubts began to creep into her mind about whether they were making the right choices. On the other hand, Hayakimaru seemed indifferent to their plight. Recalling Muni's words, Dororo questioned if eradicating all the demons would truly make a difference. Hayakimaru, however, was solely focused on his next target. When he searched for Dororo, he was surprised to find she was no longer by his side. Meanwhile, Dororo had decided to take a separate route, sensing that Hayakimaru would never pay attention to her. Out of nowhere, a band of mercenaries appeared, led by Itachi, the very uncle who had betrayed her village. He claimed he had been searching for her and demanded the other half of her father's map. Confused about how he knew, Itachi revealed he had been spying on her father when he was alive. He ordered his men to inspect her back. Before they could get close, Dororo showed them her back, which was unmarked. Itachi, however, remained skeptical, thinking she might have memorized the map. He commanded his men to seize her. They tied her to a horse, and as they rode through the forest for hours, Dororo wondered where they were heading. Itachi revealed his plan to find her father's hidden treasure. He explained that years ago, he had seen her father sneaking around their camp and suspected he was hiding part of the loot. Despite his efforts to spy on him, Itachi never found anything and eventually abandoned the search. Now, desperate and with nothing to lose, he decided to hunt for the treasure again. He had discovered the map after exhuming her mother's grave. Dororo was enraged upon hearing this and tried to attack him, but the ropes restrained her, causing her to fall. The next day, they continued climbing up the mountain and soon reached a cliff. Itachi spotted an island in the distance and was convinced it marked the treasure's location. He decided to cut Dororo loose and offered her half of the treasure if she helped him find it. But Dororo knew his promises were as worthless as his deceitful grin. Realizing they needed a boat to cross the water, they headed to a nearby village. When they arrived, they found the village completely destroyed, likely the work of bandits. Moving onto the shore, they saw that all the boats were damaged. At that moment, a strange-looking man appeared, offering them a ride on his boat. Itachi found him too creepy and questioned why the village was deserted. The odd man, Shiranui, explained that bandits had killed all the villagers. Dororo doubted his story and suggested to Itachi that they find another way. But Itachi insisted that they had no other options and had to take Shiranui's offer. As they hopped onto the boats, the peaceful scene shattered when two massive sharks suddenly surfaced, yanking them towards the distant island. Panic spread like wildfire among the crew as Shiranui casually mentioned that the sharks were his blood. Itachi waved off Shiranui's claims, branding him as plain nuts. Meanwhile, Dororo couldn't shake off her curiosity about how Shiranui had ended up missing an arm. To their horror, Shiranui spilled the beans that he had willingly fed his arm to the sharks when they got peckish. And eventually, they had polished off every soul in the village. As the truth sank in for Itachi that they were drifting towards a totally different island, he stepped up to confront Shiranui with some serious threats. Reacting like greased lightning, Shiranui summoned the sharks, ordering them to chomp down on the crew. One of the sharks lunged at a boat, tearing through the men as if they were just a snack. In a desperate bid to fight back, Itachi made a move, but a shark's brutal strike left him nursing a scratched arm, giving Shiranui a chance to make a quick getaway. With a bone-chilling command, Shiranui instructed the sharks to spare the rest of the crew for later munchies and sauntered off towards the shore. Hours ticked by, and one of the crewmates made a wild dash to paddle away, only to be met with the terrifying sight of a shark popping up from below, chomping down on the boat's wooden frame. Stranded and staring danger square in the face, the crew was gripped by sheer terror. But Dororo wasn't about to throw in the towel. With a fiery spirit, she rallied the troops, lighting a fire under their collective butts. Amidst the chaos, Dororo cooked up a daring plan to bait the shark to the surface, offering them a slim shot at survival. Without skipping a beat, she plunged into the water, narrowly dodging the snapping jaws of the predator. With nimble moves, she tugged on the rope, hauling the shark upwards. As it surged towards her, she grabbed its snout, yanking it out of the water. In a synchronized act of defiance, the crew struck the shark, dealing a fatal blow that rang out with the sweet sound of victory. As the sun started to set and the thought of Asura returning loomed, Itachi quickly told his crew to head towards the island. When evening came, Shiranui came back only to find his shark friend gone. He got super mad and rushed to the island, not knowing that a trap was waiting for him. The men jumped out and started beating him up real bad. By morning, the men kept on going, climbing up the hill to find the treasure. Dororo thought it might be all over for them. But just when things seemed really bad, Shiranui woke up and told his shark to eat all the men. Meanwhile, on a battlefield, Jukai was searching around, trying to keep a promise he made. But then a thief snatched one of his fake eyes, and a demon gobbled him up. Jukai fell to the ground, pretending to be dead. The demon went after an old man, but out of nowhere, Hyakimaru showed up and killed it. Seeing Hyakimaru's powers, Jukai got scared. They found a cave to hide in, and Jukai wondered how Hyakimaru got all his body parts back and even learned to talk. But Hyakimaru just wanted a new fake leg. Jukai tried to give him dinner, but Hyakimaru just wanted a new leg. Jukai kept trying to help, even though Hyakimaru was being stubborn. He noticed a pouch that fell from Hyakimaru's stuff and wondered if he found his family. Hyakimaru finally opened up about his dad betraying him and all the bad stuff that happened. Meanwhile, over in Daigo's village, Nuinakata finally woke up from her long sleep. But when the housekeeper told Tahimaru, he just brushed it off and rode out of the village with his crew. At the same time, inside the cave, Jukai got the lowdown on everything and realized that Daigo's big village survival depended on Tahimaru's life. So Tahimaru reiterated that he wanted a fresh leg. However, Jukai shut him down, saying he wouldn't hook him up with another one. He was worried Tahimaru would keep hunting demons, wrecking the village in the process. Jukai thought Tahimaru was losing his humanity with each demon he offed, and getting a new prosthetic leg would only make it worse. He decided to trash the idea, saying he couldn't save him. That's when Tahimaru flashed back to his mom saying the same thing, and then a landslide sealed up the cave entrance. Back at Daigo's palace, Nuinakata spilled the beans to Daigo that Tahumaru survived the demon nest because the goddess of mercy gave up her noggin in exchange for his. It was the only way he could have made it out alive, considering he should have been chomped up by the last demon. But with the goddess of mercy out of the picture now, Nuinakata figured Daigo's deal with the demons was toast. She warned him that their village was gonna bite the dust soon. But Daigo thought she was getting ahead of herself and reassured her that everything would be fine. However, as he stepped outside, his snitch told him Dororo was chilling on an island, which made Daigo think Tahumaru was tagging along. So he ordered Tahumaru to find him pronto. Meanwhile, Tahumaru and his crew cruised up to an empty house. Hearing there was a demon causing chaos in the hood, Tahumaru figured it was his job to handle it. When they walked in, they spotted a rat chilling on the floor. Next thing they knew, the rat transformed into a monster and came charging at them. Tahumaru swiftly tossed it aside, realizing it was a demon. Hyogo tried to squash it, but it got a bite in, dodging Matsu's arrows. Tahumaru whipped out his blade and chopped off one of its limbs. In the cave, Dororo got to work digging a new escape route. Jukai couldn't help but notice his relentless urge to hunt down demons. He asked Dororo why he was so determined. Dororo laid it out straight. He needed to reclaim every part of his body. Suddenly, he broke through the wall and caught a glimpse of the outside world. Back in the demon-infested house, Matsu decided to spy on the demon and saw it had a gang of over 1,000 baby demons. He aimed his arrow at them, but the big beast charged at him. Out of nowhere, Tahumaru chopped off another limb. As Hyogo tried to finish it off, the demon made a run for it, but Matsu pinned it down. With the demon captured, Tahumaru suggested they torch the house, claiming it was the only way to wipe out the monsters for good. They all agreed, and as Tahumaru headed out, he made it clear he'd protect his village, even if it meant going against his own brother. In the meantime, Hyakimaru finally stepped out and found himself facing a bunch of demons. Without missing a beat, he took down one charging straight at him, swiftly finishing off the rest in a flash. Seeing this, Jukai wondered if he had raised a monster and why he had bothered saving him in the first place. Before long, Hyakimaru had wiped out all the demons, stabbing the evil core, making it vanish along with all the demon seeds. The next day, as Hyakimaru got ready to leave, he asked Jukai for his name. But Jukai refused, thinking he didn't deserve a name because of all the killing he had done. Hyakimaru accepted this and started to leave. At the same time, in Daigo's village, Tahumaru gathered an army, getting ready to hunt down Hyakimaru. On the other hand, Hyakimaru managed to get hold of a boat and set off towards the island, hoping to find Dororo. On the island, Itachi and his crew were still on the hunt for the treasure, but doubts started to creep in. They began to wonder if they were even going in the right direction. Meanwhile, on the beach, the living shark started chomping down on the dead one, turning into a monstrous creature. After finishing its meal, it set its sights on Doro, looking to make her its next snack. As it lunged towards her, it accidentally bit into a tree instead, giving Doro a chance to escape. But the beast was relentless, continuing its pursuit. Just when things looked dire, Hyakimaru showed up out of nowhere and put a stop to the monster's rampage. Doro couldn't help but wonder why he had come to her rescue. Hyakimaru wasted no time in identifying the shark as a demon and launched into battle against it. Despite the creature's ferocity, Hyakimaru remained steadfast, relentlessly attacking it. Meanwhile, Era attempted to join the fight, but got swatted away by the creature. Undeterred, Hyakimaru leaped high into the air and dealt a decisive blow, ultimately defeating the monster. With the danger gone, Hyakimaru and Doro shared a moment of relief. But then, to everyone's surprise, Hyakimaru's wooden leg fell away, revealing a new, fully formed leg in its place. With time ticking away, Doro suggested they track down Itachi immediately. They wasted no time in heading towards the mountain, eager to unravel the mysteries of their quest. Meanwhile, atop the mountain, Itachi and his crew stumbled upon a cave, convinced that the treasure lay within. Excited about the prospect of striking it rich, two of his buddies bravely entered, imagining themselves rolling in cash. But their dreams turned to dust when one triggered a trap, causing the cave to explode in an instant. Despite the setback, Itachi remained optimistic, insisting they were on the right track to find the treasure. Their plans took a sudden turn when they spotted Tahumaru's ship sailing towards the island. Hyakimaru realized they were gunning for him. Before long, Tahumaru's crew landed on the shore, where Matsu informed Tahumaru they'd found Hyakimaru's boat on the other side of the island. With this revelation, Tahumaru wasted no time, ordering his troops to take out Hyakimaru and anything else in their way. Caught off guard by their unexpected arrival, Itachi questioned their motives. But when arrows started raining down on his crew, he quickly realized they meant business. They were here to wipe them all out. With survival instincts kicking in, Itachi made a dash for it, realizing his shot at finding the treasure was slipping away. Meanwhile, Dororo and Hyakkimaru raced to safety, pursued by 2 archers. Armed with rocks, they managed to knock out their attackers and continued their frantic escape. While Dororo scaled the mountain, she stumbled upon Itachi and his crew already lurking there. Itachi admitted he hadn't found her father's treasure yet. Furious, Dororo demanded he snap out of it, insisting survival trumped riches. But Itachi remained fixated on Tahumaru, convinced he'd nab the treasure for himself. Hyakkimaru proposed a distraction, and Itachi concocted a plan. Minutes later, one of his men faked a wound, fooling the army into thinking Itachi was setting explosives. Seizing the chance, the soldiers rushed to the scene, allowing Itachi to suggest a retreat to the shore. However, their escape hit a snag when one of Itachi's men was struck by an arrow from Matsu on the shore. Then, they spotted Hyogo perched above them. Just then, Tahumaru approached, accusing Hyakkimaru of being the land's terror and demanding his death. Angry, Hyakkimaru charged, but Hyogo intervened, shattering the ground beneath him, causing the cliff to crumble. Somehow, Hyakkimaru caught himself, returning to duel Tahumaru. Amidst the chaos, Itachi urged his crew to flee, dragging Dororo with them. Meanwhile, Hyakkimaru deftly dodged Hyogo's attacks and neutralized Matsu's arrows. Taking cover behind a tree, he pondered Tahumaru's dark descent. Matsu explained that killing Hyakkimaru was Tahumaru's only way to protect their land, firing an arrow into Hyakkimaru's back. Seizing the moment, Tahumaru launched another attack, while Hyogo aimed to shatter his sword. While Itachi and his crew were sneaking around the mountain, arrows suddenly flew out, piercing through his men. They tried to escape, but more arrows kept coming. Eventually, they stumbled upon a row of statues. Itachi recognized the spot from his map, thinking there might be treasure nearby. He checked the statues, hoping to strike it rich, but then an arrow hit his back. Scared of getting caught, he threw his sword at the attackers, taking down one of them. However, they retaliated with more arrows. Luckily, Dororo found cover behind a statue, but it toppled over, causing a landslide that crushed everyone in its path. In the battle, Hyakkimaru dodged attacks and climbed a tree. But when Matsu's arrow missed, he charged at Tahumaru with his sword. However, Hobo knocked him back, sending him crashing into a rock. Despite this, Hyakkimaru fought on, declaring Tahumaru as his enemy and engaging in a fierce sword fight. Meanwhile, Itachi, sensing his end was near, expressed his wish to see the treasure before he died. Suddenly, they spotted Ora on a cliff. He announced his intention to wipe them all out, then threw down his torch, causing a massive explosion that destroyed the mountain and sent rocks crashing down on the soldiers. In the aftermath, Hyakkimaru managed to escape, while Tahumaru ordered his men to retreat. As the dust settled, Hyakkimaru decided to search for Dororo amidst the chaos and destruction left behind. So, Dororo and Itachi woke up inside a mysterious cave and were shocked to find the treasure they had been searching for right in front of them. But just as Itachi reached out for the gold, something strange happened. His soul suddenly left his body. Devastated, Dororo decided to honor his memory and told Hyakkimaru she felt overwhelmed by the immense fortune they had found. As night fell, they decided to leave the island, setting sail under the cover of darkness. A week later, Tahumaru noticed that the villages were facing severe famine and diseases were spreading rapidly. Hyogo suspected that demons were behind these troubles and believed they were being punished for not defeating Hyakkimaru. Tahumaru, on the other hand, thought the demons might hold the answers they needed and proposed they visit the Hall of Demons, where all of Daigo's statues were kept. On the other side of the world, Dororo noticed the crisp autumn air for the first time and found it odd that she had never paid attention to it before. As they took a short break, a man appeared on the mountain, asking if they were hunting demons too. When Dororo asked who he was, he introduced himself as Saburata and said he was also on the trail of a demon. He had been pursuing this demon for over 6 months and showed them a scar as proof of his encounters. He explained that the demon had killed his mother and he had been seeking vengeance ever since. Despite his story, Hyakkimaru was skeptical and decided to take Dororo away from the stranger. Not long after, they reached the peak of a tall mountain. Saburata mentioned that this was where the beast always appeared. And right on cue, the big, scary creature popped up on a rock. Dororo quickly realized this wasn't like any monster they'd faced before. At the same time, Hyakkimaru figured out it was actually a demon. Without wasting time, he charged straight at it. The demon charged back, ready to fight. Hyakkimaru dodged its punch and jumped away. But then, he saw the demon's tail aiming for Dororo. He moved fast, saving her just in time, and blocked Saburata's attack, making him run away. Dororo couldn't understand why Saburata was helping the demon. Saburata confessed he was the demon's servant, offering people as snacks, even sacrificing his own mom. Just then, the beast started charging at them again, but Hyakkimaru quickly moved out of the way, causing the demon to crash into the rock. Before they knew it, the cliff broke, and the rocks fell to the ground below. A few minutes later, Dororo slowly regained consciousness, her head throbbing as she became aware of her arm trapped under the rubble. Frantically trying to free herself, she noticed with a sinking feeling that water was starting to seep from the ground, a clear sign of an impending flood. Panic rising, she called out for help, and Hyakkimaru rushed to her side. With grim determination, he attempted to pull her arm free, but his prosthetic arms proved futile against the weight of the debris. As Dororo struggled to keep her head above the rising water, Hyakkimaru shifted tactics, pushing against the boulder in a desperate attempt to dislodge it. But despite his efforts, the stubborn rock remained unmoved, and with each passing moment, the water level continued to rise. Fear gnawed at Dororo's heart as she felt the icy tendrils of panic tighten their grip around her. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, a glimmer of salvation appeared in the form of Mooney, who arrived just in the nick of time. With a swift and decisive strike, he plunged his sword into the boulder, shattering it into pieces and freeing Dororo from her watery prison. Gasping for breath and overwhelmed with gratitude, Dororo thanked Mooney profusely as Hyakkimaru wasted no time in getting them back on track, his determination unyielding even in the face of adversity. Arriving at the base of the mountain, Sabota couldn't help but marvel at Hyakkimaru's resilience, wondering aloud how he had managed to survive the treacherous journey thus far. Unperturbed by the question, Hyakkimaru's gaze remained fixed on the towering peak ahead, his resolve unshakable as he declared his intent to confront the demon once and for all. A few moments later, when Dororo reached the mountain's peak, she found a shocking scene. The demon's tail was sliced off, and following a trail of blood, she discovered the scattered body parts of the beast. Realization struck her. Hyakkimaru had completely destroyed the monster, leaving nothing behind but chaos. Even his sword was lodged in Sabota, a final sign of the fierce battle. Sabota, in his last moments, realized Hyakkimaru wasn't fully human. Despite this, he tried to attack him, but Hyakkimaru swiftly ended him. Yet, his body parts didn't regenerate this time. Unfazed, Hyakkimaru continued stabbing the demon, fueled by a desperate determination. Ignoring Dororo's protests, he screamed for his body, relentlessly attacking the demon as if it were just meat. Meanwhile, Tahumaru and his crew entered the Hall of Demons. They watched as another statue cracked, leaving only one standing. This hinted at the climax of their journey, a showdown that would decide everything. As Hyakkimaru prepared to leave, Dororo confronted him, demanding answers. He revealed Daigo, his own father, was the last demon. That's it for this video. Watch the following video, and I'll catch you in the next one.